Good everyone, on this video today we have a bit of an unusual video which I don't tend to do, and that is a top 5 strike aircraft for the Thunderer / mass destruction tasks. This is mainly because I got asked by a subscriber, and typically I don't tend to do these sorts of lists, but I figured, you know what, it makes a bit of a change of pace from what I usually do, so why not? So I'm going to start off with a bit of a thing. If you want to skip ahead to just the number 1, number 2, etc., please do feel free to do so in the comments, or not comments, in the description below. There's going to be timestamps for each number of the aircraft chosen. Obviously, the Mosquito you can see on the screen here is an honourable mention. So let's get into why. I think the Mosquito is a very underrated aircraft, and fair enough, half of it is down to the way Gaijin's implemented its flight model. But the Mosquito is a perfectly solid aircraft for doing this sort of thing. It's pretty quick, it has good guns for the job, its bomb load and rocket load is a little bit low, but it's not bad at all. I've been able to rack up quite a decent number of these. And to be fair, I don't use the Mosquito as much, but that's mainly due to the way Gaijin has implemented it. It's not correct in the slightest. And it definitely needs an improvement, and we also need some more Mosquito variants, but I don't think we're going to get those anytime soon. So, let's move on to the number 5 spot and see what we've got. I'll see you then. At the number 5 spot, we have the ME410 B6R3. This would probably be near the top, I'll be brutally honest, but unfortunately, it's stuck in the black hole with German teams. Now, the B6R3 is incredibly good for this sort of task. If you've actually watched my spade review a few years ago on this aircraft, I was racking up ground targets. This thing can do that all day long. Now, it's originally intended to be an interceptor. However, I wouldn't advise that at 5.0 and above. If you're at 4.0 BR, where you've got a down tier, feel free, but generally speaking, you're probably going to be sucked up into the 6.0 black hole, and your teams are going to suck. But if you can get just the right BR, like 5.3, 5.7, maybe even a down tier, this thing is a menace to ground targets. With it packing no bombs, but it has obviously the 20 mils, which can take out nearly every light target. And then you come to the 30 mils, which has HVAP. These are incredibly powerful belts, and they can even deal with planes if you want. These guns pack a decent post-pen as well for ground RB, but also the fact that these things mow down medium tanks like it's not even drying is ridiculous. And all I'll say is, if it wasn't for the fact that this thing gets sucked into the 6.0 black hole, where it mostly has 4 288s and one other fighter on its team, yeah, this thing would probably be near the top. And that's really its only limiting factor. Obviously, its other technical limiting factor is its armor protection. Whilst it seems a lot on paper if you look at the airframe itself, it's quite fragile and it's vulnerable to fires. The gunner has no real protection as well, so the guns in the back here do tend to get sniped quite easily. So there is that. But generally speaking, this isn't a bad plane. So that's why it's in number 5. Let's move on to number 4. At the number 4 spot, we have the IL-10. This is actually quite surprising to some people. I chose the IL-10 to be number 4 because, once again, it's stuck in a black hole. However, it doesn't get paired with the Germans much, and it's also quite good as a fighter as well, if you need to. It packs lower capability in terms of bomb load and stuff compared to the IL-2s, but do remember, this thing did get custom loadouts recently, so you can have a bit of a play. There isn't much you can strap to it, because obviously 600 kilograms is the maximum, but you can have a play and just give it some lighter rockets, bigger rockets, things like that, and then obviously you can strap on some bombs that you need. You can perfectly set this thing up. Sorry, my hay fever's a bit bad today. But then, of course, you have the VYA-23s, which can deal with practically any ground target. The 250 kilogram bombs will pretty much do the same as long as you can get them on target. And there is really no downside to this thing, other than the fact that it's stuck in a black hole, which, again, that is quite a benefit. Well, it's a benefit if you're fighting the Germans, it's a benefit if you're not. Well, it's not a benefit if you're stuck with them. But it's got decent performance, it's got a decent engine as well. It actually handles quite well, and the rear gunner has great coverage, so you can even defend yourself whilst you're doing your job. And its performance for an attack aircraft is surprisingly good, I must say. It's really solid, and I'm sorry, but if anyone says the IL-10 is a bad strike aircraft, I just simply disagree with you. And to be brutally honest, it is very, very capable in what it can do. And of course, with it having plenty of Shikas ammo and VYA-23 ammo, it's going to get a lot done. And because Russian teams tend to be pretty solid, you're going to get a lot done. All right, let's move on to number 3. At the number 3 spot, we have the SM-91. This might be a bit of a surprise, given that it doesn't have as good ground attack capability as the previous few aircraft we've already talked about. However, that's not why I'm bringing this thing up. This thing is incredibly good. There's no sugarcoating it. You have 6 20mm cannons to deal with pretty much most things. It does struggle against tanks, just bear in mind. But then you've also got a 20mm rear gunner and you've got bombs. Now, the bombs aren't the greatest, I'll say that. They're only 650s or 6100s, and they are quite far out on the wings, as you can tell. But the fact that this thing is relatively maneuverable for what it is, and has 620s, it is something quite incredible, to say the least. And as I said, the rear-mounted cannon is really good for defense, and can even help out against ground targets if you run out of ammo. What do I really need to say about this thing? It's incredibly good, incredibly fun to fly, and it gets shit done. That's the important part. Alright, let's move on to number 2. And in the number 2 slot, as you can probably tell, there's a lot of Russian aircraft in this because they tend to be the best. We have the Su-6 AM-42. This is, without a question, one of my favorites. And if I ever get a strike aircraft task, I generally take this thing. Except for the number 1 slot, which no prize to guess what it is. But this aircraft is very versatile. It can be played around with custom loadouts, which I'm going to demonstrate here. So you can obviously bring the... I've just noticed they messed with my payload up here. They've actually removed some of it. But you can bring the 23mm cannons, you can bring the 37mm cannons, you can bring a wide range of bombs, rockets, and even some of the 25s, which I enjoy using personally. And, well, I'll just give an example here. So if we go to edit, this is only 89 kilograms, so I'm going to take these off. Now, there is a limit of 670 kilo, but you can pretty much play around with this if you want. You can take the 16 25s. You can also take the 450s, which is generally what I take, or I take the 4100s. But for this example, I'll put the 450s in the bomb bay. You then, of course, put on the 23s because they're more suitable. You can take the 37s because they are good and they do have quite a bit of ammo, but they do overheat and jam quite easily. Then, of course, you can add in whatever you like, maybe some 50s, maybe some 100s. And then, to top it all off, you can just add in a few rockets to finish it up. Or, if you want, you can go a little bit heavier on the internal bombs and adjust the wing bombs to be a little bit smaller. And then, you can carry as much as this, once I actually put it on. You can carry light rockets to deal with the lighter targets, so you're not wasting your machine gun ammo or your cannon ammo. You've got smaller bombs to deal with smaller targets, and then you've got some internal bombs to deal with the bigger targets. And as I said, the 23s, they are pretty nasty. Now, of course, if you're planning to bring the 37s, that is where the weight can go up and you get dangerously close to the limit. But the 37s pack an incredible punch as well with the armored target belt. But of course, you don't have as much ammo, so just bear that in mind. But for a number 2 slot, this thing is one of the best. But what could take its crown, might you ask? It is stuck at a high BR, so there's got to be something that's a little bit lower in BR, but does just as much. But don't worry, there's an easy answer for that. Let's move on to number 1. And in the number 1 slot, which should come as no surprise, is the IL-2M Type 3. This is arguably one of the best strike aircraft in the game. Now, there is a couple of things which I have a gripe about, but that's not the plane's fault. Gaijin has recently implemented custom loadouts to this aircraft, and there isn't as much play as you get on the Su-6. So, I'll give you an example. For example, I wanted to take 12 25 kilogram. Well, I wanted to take some 25 kilogram bombs, which you can take 12. Well, I'd want to be only to take three in these internal bays, because then you can obviously put in whatever you want. So, yeah, essentially, it's my gripe that you can't have as much of a play with the bomb load choices, because I'd take three of these 25s in the internal bomb bays. I'd then take two 100s on the external bays, and then some rockets. That gives it much more versatility in what it can do. But sadly, Gaijin isn't letting us do that. As you saw there, I'll just demonstrate again. So it actually prohibits that, and I'm fairly certain you could carry a mixed payload if you wanted. And I just feel like it's a bit strange that they limit us, because you allow us to take the bombs internally because they're only small, but then you don't let us take a couple of bombs that are bigger alongside it. Just let us bring three of these on each bay, and then the two 100s, and then some rockets, and I'll be solid. But other than that one real gripe, this thing is just as good as the SU6. No, it does obviously trade a little bit of flight performance, but you don't really feel that. It's just as agile. It's got similar guns. It's got a little more durability in my experience. The IL-2 seemed to take more of a hit in the SU6, but that's just my experience. And the ray gunner, of course, is quite useful and does even more damage at this tier, because some people don't even have armor on their planes at 2.3, which, yes, you can get a down tier to that, and it's disgusting. But as I said, it's a very versatile aircraft. It's very well armored, just like the SU6, and it's just as quick as well. Obviously, the SU6 is a little bit faster, but speed doesn't really matter in this case. And even if you get into a 4-3 match, this thing can handle its own. I've been able to dogfight people in this thing. I've dogfighted two people at the same time in this thing, and won. It's incredibly maneuverable, just like the SU6 and the IL-10, and it's at a lower BR where you can potentially face P40s, which is quite funny, to be honest, and you can kick their ass as well. The simple fact of the matter is that this plane takes the SU6, the IL-10, and obviously the other aircraft we mentioned, and pretty much just blows them out of the park. And obviously, yeah, there is the gripe that the custom loadouts isn't as playable as I thought it would be, which is what I was looking forward to. But if they fix that, you have the most versatile aircraft, hands down, for this strike aircraft task. The amount of strike aircraft tasks I've done with this thing is unbelievable. It's either this or the SU6, it depends on my mood in the day. But if I want to have some fun at a low BR, I take this. And that concludes my top 5 aircraft. I hope you enjoyed seeing a bit more explanation about some of the more ones that you can actually have a play with, like the SU6 and the IL-2M. It is, shall we say, like, obviously it is subjective to opinion, and everyone will obviously have their own opinion, but personally speaking, this is my top 5, and obviously the Mosquito is an honourable mention. But I hope you enjoyed seeing that, and if you do want any more videos like this, do let me know, because obviously it is something that gets the old brain ticking and makes me think. But also, I'd like to see people's opinion in the comments below. What is your top 5 is all I'll ask. And do you think I'm wrong on anything? Do you think that the SU6 should have taken the crown? Let me know. Anyway, I'll leave you all to it for today, and I will see you all on the next one.